Alright folks, the full breakdown of the all new Czech light tanks in patch 1.26. Now as per usual with any other light tank research, these vehicles have an inflated XP research cost in comparison to medium tanks or heavy tanks of the same tier. So for example, a tier 10 medium tank usually costs about 200,000 XP, whereas this tier 10 costs 240,000 XP. So the main reason I could think is Wargaming want to slow down the tomatoes from reaching a higher tier matchmaking with a high skill cap vehicle, just so it doesn't feel that discouraging or disgruntled for any other players on your team with a tomato light tank. But does it work? Not really. It has been that way since the dawn of time, so whatever. Also, the tier 7 is the most normal, comparable light tank to any other light tank you have played, like the T-71 Detroit Arsenal or the original 5916 with the autoloader. So it still has a gold shell, whereas the actual autocannons doesn't have a gold shell. It's a different shell type, but about the same cost, similar to artillery shell loadout. So you have the AP, APCR has better pin but less alpha damage, and high explosive has less penetration but a lot more damage. So similar to artillery nowadays, but new blue icon for high explosive, still the same but it's blue. So with that being said, at tier 7 coming from the Skoda T25, you need 50,000 XP to research this vehicle. It's like a baby Skoda T27 or T50. We have originally previewed this vehicle. Stock turret is pretty big. All the vehicles have garbage armor, so nothing to really talk about there, but I'll show you guys the full stats comparison, so it makes it a little bit easier. But for now, you don't need to research the tracks for the turret, which is good, and you don't need to research the tracks for the gun, the upgraded 75mm compared to the 66. It is still auto loader, not an auto cannon, but it fires very quickly, 1.3 seconds between each shot, so it's rapid firing machine gun of an actual cannon. But crew of 3, all the crew members are the same throughout the whole vehicle line, so train your actual Panzerwagen 39 by retraining the radio operator into the gunner and you're set, or just train your saved up barrack crew members. With that being said, so here is the full stats comparison. Makes it a lot easier to compare the original stats to the current stats. So the ones in Russian is the original super test stats, so one's on this side and this is the new stats. They dramatically buffed the alpha damage. Originally it was 80 per shot with 5 rounds in the clip. Now it's 100, basically buffing the DPM by 25%, which is huge. And 5 rounds of 100 damage per about 15 seconds is not bad for a light tank technically, but that is still like a higher tier Skoda T25 in a sense. So you get to have fun with fast mobility, gun depression is not bad, accuracy is alright, aim time is relatively quick in thinking about it, but 1.33 seconds between each shot, so you're dumping the mag very quickly. Penetration is alright, I mean it's a light tank, you get about that pin, so you kind of go through frontal armor that much on heavy tanks or some medium tanks, but go towards the rear and dump shells. But armor is crap as expected. They nerfed the actual weight and engine power, so it's still offset at about the same horsepower per ton ratio, but less capability of ramming stuff and slower to rev in a sense. Not really slower to rev. It seems slower to rev, but horsepower per ton ratio is still the same practically. So they also added a nerf to camo after firing. So you're less invisible, but then again, you're firing autoloader. You are spotted when you're firing. So other than that, the stats have remained the same since the super test. About 25 horsepower per ton ratio. Top speed could be better, so this thing still plays like a fast medium tank, similar to the medium tank line, but rapid firing gun. This vehicle seems a little bit better and more in line than the T14, not T14, T34-100, right? Or TVP VTU thing. Those are sniper medium tanks, but without the auto. This vehicle feels a lot better as a precursor to the Skoda T50, but no, it's not. So all the stats are relatively the same, but the biggest change, alpha damage increase. That is huge. But take a look here. So all the alpha damage went up. AP round, gold APCR, and especially high explosive. 5 rounds of 150 alpha damage with 38mm of pin. This thing chews out paper armor vehicles. If you have intuition trained, it's pretty good. So basically 750 damage in about 15 seconds or so. Not bad. Not bad for a light tank. Not bad for a light tank. It's very nimble to dump high explosive to the rear of a Rheinmetall Borsig or Su-130PM or the recent French SFAC-105. That thing has no armor, so yeah, it might be interesting, but dispersion is not bad for a light tank. It's not great, but by all means, moving dispersion is not great, but you're close. You are very close, within 50 meters when you're dumping mag, so dispersion doesn't really matter that much if you're exposing to a large ship barn of armor, but yeah, it should be okay. It's not the worst. Shell velocity is also not the worst too, so they did not nerf the shell velocity from the super test. And originally I rated it at 6 out of 10, so cartoon version of a T27 or Skoda T50, but autoloader instead of autocannon, yada yada. Combat like playstyle like the WZ-131, but the longer this vehicle survives, the deadlier it becomes, obviously. It's an assassin vehicle, right? Only beaten, high HP, only beaten by Alpha Panther. So, past self, good to know. So this vehicle is still very good. It feels very much like the medium tank line. So why would you play with stuff like T34-100? That thing, that's not even comparable, right? That's not even the same with the Skoda T25. Not even the same with the Skoda T50 or the Premium tank. It's so different. The similar thing applies to the TVP VTU. So this is practically a 2-tier higher Skoda T40. Practically, but yeah, this vehicle feels good. It feels fine. It feels still like a 6, maybe 6.25 out of 10. It's actually no. The alpha damage does help a lot. I would say 6.5 out of 10. It feels very good to play. You'll have fun. It is dangerous fun. It is high skill level fun, but you'll have fun nonetheless. So coming from this vehicle, research the guns, and you have to research the guns for the actual other vehicle, the up tier vehicle, not the actual engine, but VZ-64. This vehicle is the most traditional of light tanks in comparison to any other combat VZ-68 or 71 or the LPT-67, but this is more light tank compared to the Brethren's. So research your guns. The gun weighs the same, so you can actually research a gun without actually researching the turret or tracks, which is nice. So nothing really highlights. If you have a requirement like this one, the prior requirement is the gun needs a turret, so that thing gets highlighted. If you need the tracks will be highlighted. But for this case, it's not. So you can actually research the turret without research the tracks, which is nice. But for this vehicle, stock turret looks okay. I mean, it's more like a shortened version of a PT-76 with the ass chopped off, or the combat area chopped off for the crew or the extra crew. But similar crew loadout, that's fine. 30mm caliber for the main gun, and you don't need to research anything else. But let's upgrade everything. So yeah, you can put the tracks, you can put the turret without the tracks. So we didn't even research tracks, so that's nice. But might be slightly different when the equipments were put onto this vehicle, but yeah, not that bad of a research. I would still say, if you want to have fun, research the gun first. If you want to spot, research the turret first. But that's up to you. So these vehicles are close range fighting vehicles, and therefore I would say the gun first. But stats comparison wise, they actually nerfed the penetration by 2mm for some reason. Alright, that's not that much, but fine. DPM stays the same, rate of fire stays the same, gun depression is still very good. Accuracy could be better, aim time could be better, but it's an autocannon now, not autoloader. They nerfed the health by 50 to 1000. I mean, it's not much, but still, you'll feel it against a large caliber gun, so Jagdpanzer E100 or some artillery shells could instantly kill you. Practically. So if you roll high on a non-stun high explosive round, you're dead playing with this vehicle, but just be careful. They nerfed the weight, nerfed the engine power, and nerfed the horsepower per ton ratio slightly. Okay, I mean 28 is still good, but yeah, okay, that's fine. And they also nerfed the hull traverse. Why? I mean, 48 degrees per second is close enough to 45, but okay. Dramatically nerfing camouflage after firing. But then again, 4.6% is very close to 2.5. I mean, it's not like 10% to 2.5, but still, be wary of that. But for this vehicle, this is smaller in size and frame in comparison to the BMP-esque of combat light tanks we saw later on with its brethren. So dispersion is not bad, but I'm worried about after firing dispersion. So this is actually after you fire the machine gun, but in comparison to the recent stuff, like, let's see, what the hell? Let's just go back to the full list. And tanks.gg got crashed. No? I have to redo everything. It's not list. So what I'm saying is, for example, if you have been playing the overwhelming fire mode, the autocannons have about 0 dispersion factor after firing. I don't know how this actually affects the actual autocannons with the other real vehicles or standard vehicles, but yeah, all the autocannons usually have 0 after firing dispersion. It still feels getting bigger, right? But not as crazy as 3, I presume. The only one I would notice is the 0.10 on the Yo tank with the autocannon. So it blooms, but there is no overheating element. You don't see the overheating element on this vehicle on the stats page. But yeah, take it with some grain of salt. Oh, what the hell is this? 1.1? It doesn't feel like that for the flak mouse. But I don't know how that comparable to any other autocannon. So just be wary of 3 after firing. But I mean, that is big compared to 1.1 or 0.1. But yeah, it might get a very big bloom when you're auto firing or going full auto with the gun. But yeah, dispersion is still fine. So still a close range fighting vehicle. You want to shoot the rear of vehicles with the shells. But yeah, they nerf the penetration slightly. Very slightly, but still about 2 or 3 millimeters. They nerfed the shell velocity. So originally it was 20 more meters per second or so, 80 more for the APCR, but they buffed the alpha damage of the high explosive, so some trade-off. But I feel this vehicle got the biggest nerf stick out of the bunch. So you don't see any buffs to like top speed or armor or health. Yeah, health got nerfed too, so you don't see that many buffs, but yeah, it's not as big of a buff as on the Skoda T17. That thing gets a crazy alpha damage buff. This is alright. I mean, jumping from 10 to 12 doesn't seem much, but it's a machine gun. So still about 20% with the machine gun in alpha DPM for high explosive, so still not bad. I would still say this vehicle is still decent. Originally I rated it at 6.5. It's an attractive box shape with twin 37s, but yeah, it's not gold APCR. Now we know it's actually just APCR. It's a different shell type, like with artillery, but it's not a gold shell. So that's fine. You cannot pocket sink lots of gold shell into these vehicles, and it's also hard to calculate gold. Like, how the hell do you just like cost one shell equal 1 gold? You'll run out of money. So yeah, slightly smaller than combat light tanks, like with its brethren. No armor as expected. It's nimble, but they nerfed the horsepower per ton ratio. I would still say 6.5, so it still feels pretty decent. But for the premium tank, that's a whole different can of worms. So let's take a look at the premium. It is hidden, of course, but easily to access. So check 𝗟𝗲 VZ68. So premium version, it is much bigger than its tech tree counterpart at tier 8. It is like a BMP practically. We already went through this vehicle. Also a larger caliber of a gun. It's a 50mm compared to 37. So yeah, premium tank bias, but let's see the actual stats in comparison. So now called 𝗟𝗲, but still the VZ68. They buffed the penetration by 2mm. It's not much, but fine, whatever. They also buffed the weight and engine power of this vehicle. It's still about the same horsepower per ton ratio, but a lot better at ramming. Well, then again, 2 tons is not that much, but still. Better at ramming? Question mark? Also, they nerf camo after firing, as per usual. So, originally 5% after firing. It's better camo after firing than the smaller caliber 37. I mean, better muzzle brake? I don't know, for the flash? Not really, but yeah, obviously nerfed to 2% after firing camo. You won't really notice the difference, I would say. I mean, you're bursting dramatically. You'll be spotted, and you'll be close range, but yeah, they're okay. So, they buffed the alpha damage, which is nice. Buffed the alpha damage on the APCR round, and on the high explosive got buffed too. So 16 damage for the shots, not bad. They buffed the standard pin slightly. Nerfed the APCR pin by 4, also slightly, but shell velocity gets nerfed. So if you have been playing overwhelming fire, it's about the same. So you wouldn't feel that big of a difference. But yeah, for a premium tank, it's not bad, but dispersion better than the actual tech tree. It is still 3 after firing, but it has better turret traverse and hull traverse dispersion with a larger gun. But DPM is about the same, 70 less, but somehow it has better accuracy. Why? Yeah, better base accuracy too. And faster to aim for a longer barrel, bigger caliber gun. Premium tank bias, telling me it's not a thing when you're telling me it is a thing. Tell me it is a thing without telling me it. So originally I rated it at 6.5 as well. So BMP 2 shape practically. And same camouflage view range as the VZ64. They did not change the view range or camo. So thoroughly compared, I chose a T-44-100 in comparison. So it is nimble, but it's a close range twin 50mm autocannon. So barely more HP, a little bit more HP now since the tier 8 tech tree version gets a nerf to HP. So technically a little bit more HP, but whatever. Bias for premium tanks. Yeah, it's still 6.5. It still feels pretty decent. I mean, I wouldn't mind getting this vehicle as actually paying for it. Not with a loot box. Don't put it into a loot. Don't do this. Don't put this vehicle into the Waffentrager loot box. Everybody will be disappointed. Don't do that. Please, just sell it. Sell it for like 40 bucks, 50 bucks. People will buy it. Don't play gambling, right? Don't put this into a loot box. And it's also the Waffentrager time too with the release of this patch. Don't put this into a loot box. You'll disappoint a lot of player base. Don't put it into a loot box. Alright, so moving on, we're going to tier 9 with the actual tech tree vehicle. So researching from the 𝗕𝗬64, research a gun, and then about almost 200,000 XP, which is kind of a lot. But the actual gun doesn't cost that much, which is nice. Yeah, you also get slightly better alpha damage, or better alpha damage and better pin slightly, and better DPM. Less rate of fire, but that doesn't matter, you deal more damage. So with the tier 9, it looks a lot like the premium tank, a lot like it, but yeah, very close to like it. The only difference is the engine deck, it's elevated slightly. So we already covered a lot of the differences, but researching on this vehicle, you need the turret for the actual gun for the twin 57. So you're practically playing the same gun from the premium tank as the stock gun on this vehicle, but the turret weighs and the engine weighs, I think, comparable. So you don't need the tracks, which is nice. You don't need the tracks for upgrading the gun or the turret. The actual top 57mm weighs less than the 50mm. Yeah, it's about 6, 7, 8 kilograms compared to 920. So it actually weighs less for the top gun. But if you want to have fun, research the guns. Otherwise, you can research the engine for better spotting. These vehicles are not really meant to spot. They play like pseudo medium tanks. So you want the gun first. Research the guns. But yeah, incompatible turret, you need the turret first. And with that turret, you can place the gun. Yeah, it's a shorter barrel of a gun, but it's a bigger caliber. Also, the gun costs a lot of XP too, so yeah, you have to use free XP if you want to have fun immediately. It gets a DPM buff, it gets a alpha damage buff, and penetration buff, especially for APCR rounds. But yeah, if you want to have fun, research your guns. But let's see the actual main stats, full stats comparison. So LPT-67, they buffed the penetration, buffed the rate of fire by buffing the reload time on the clip. So DPM gets buffed. So it's about 2,600 DPM, which is not bad. What the hell is it 2,600? When it's... Oh, I don't have the turret. Yeah, I think I already have the turret. Oh, that's the base DPM without the turret buffing it. Is it? Yeah, it is. So, yep. Yeah, of course. So, yeah, that DPM is not bad. But then again, you have to land all your shells and penetrate. So, still pretty decent. But buffing the health slightly. Nerfing the overall armor. So, originally 50 at the hull front, 40 at the turret front. Somewhat bouncing high explosive rounds. But now, nah, not really. 20 all the way around. So, they nerfed the actual armor on this vehicle, making it a paper tank. And buffing the weight, buffing the engine power, and slightly nerfing the horsepower per ton ratio. So they did not buff the engine power as much to offset the actual weight, but whatever. And moving on. Yep, same hull traverse, turret traverse. Nerfing the camo after firing, obviously, but yeah, this vehicle becomes deadlier. So more of a glass cannon. So reload time gets buffed while reducing the actual armor. Gets a little bit more health to compensate, but glass cannon still. And the dispersion on this vehicle is not bad. Well, I mean, it's about the same as the Tier A Premium. So this vehicle is very much in line with the Tier A Premium. So already mentioned this, but the main difference is the elevated engine deck. So you can shoot the elevated engine deck compared to the flat one, but small detail, very much small detail. And this thing has no armor now. 20. It's 30 at the lower plate, but that doesn't matter. You'll get pinned. It doesn't matter. So what happened to the gun? The gun doesn't act as space armor. Is that a thing? No way. I think it's just a glitch. You can still use the gun as space armor sometimes. I mean, it might deter a shaped charge in your face, but somehow the gun is missing on this model. Okay, glitch, I guess, in the matrix. But yeah, dispersion is not bad. It's still comparable to the premium tank, just faster aim time, right? And you have a little bit better clip damage with the shells, but okay. Yeah, originally I rated this vehicle 6. It's still good. Yeah, now it might be 6.75 with slight buff to the DPM. And DPM changes big for autocannons. You might not think about it, but DPM change from 19 seconds to 17 seconds is kind of huge. You'll feel this difference with the overwhelming fire mode. Usually the reload time is about 20 seconds. But for the 𝗕𝗂𝗃, the Object 140 thing, that thing has 12 seconds. With about the same damage burst potential as the 20 seconds ones. So yeah, having faster reload is a big deal. But yeah, still 6.75 I would think for this vehicle. And finally, researching from this vehicle to the tier 10, you need the turret, you need the gun. Gun weighs less, so that's nice. Did we already mention that? I already mentioned that. It's like deja vu. But yeah, turret weighs. Yeah, we already mentioned this. Engine weighs the same. So finally, researching the tier 10 costs about 240,000 XP, which is a lot. So this vehicle is a combat light tank. It's not a freaking actual light. It's a medium tank, practically. Size of it is a medium, but the damage potential on this thing is crazy. Did I even cover the? I'm stupid. They nerfed the alpha damage on the prior gun. I'm getting disoriented. They buffed the penetration, but you wouldn't notice that much. So, alright, with that being said, getting disoriented. Alright, finally the tier 10. So, yeah, they buffed the penetration as well. But the 𝗕𝗃𝗃 is a medium tank. It's not really a light tank. It doesn't have the medium tank health, but it's a medium tank. So, damage dealing with the gun. Also 57, right? 57. It's not a bigger caliber like autocannon 70s. Otherwise, that's kind of crazy. But they buff slightly of the reload time, surprisingly, but not that much. It's half of a second. But DPM gets a little bit better, slightly. And rest of the stats are practically the same. So very fast, very nimble, has no armor whatsoever. And yeah, camouflage after firing is crap, about 2%. So yeah, all the stats that we originally covered, still the same. So it is a combat medium tank. And buffing the shell velocity, the actual penetration without touching the shell velocity, nerfing the APCR pin, and nerfing the alpha damage on the high explosive to 24. So make it a little bit more consistent. Yeah, 25 is not that much different, but yeah, it's very damaging high explosive round. Very damaging. Get to the rear with 50mm pen is devastating to paper armor targets, even from the front on some vehicles. But this thing dishes out a lot of high explosive damage. It doesn't get nerfed that dramatically, not that much. It's not even touched most of the time. So yeah, this vehicle still feels pretty good. Yeah, dispersion is absolutely crazy. It's better, even better than the tier 9. How does it compare with some of the best dispersion while moving, like this piece of crap? It is even more accurate shooting while moving than the EBR. And the EBR moves all the time while shooting. The only downside to it is after firing accuracy or dispersion. But how much does that really play into this stuff, right? Shell velocity is obviously not as quick, but you carry a lot more ammo. Potential damage is surprisingly about the same. Surprisingly. You have better gun depression, 12 degrees with the unmanned turret. But yeah, DPM is high for a light tank. You have to pin all the shells, but DPM with high explosive is 6,000. 6,000 DPM. That is nuts. So yeah, these are combat light tanks. These are not light tanks. These are mostly medium tanks. 5,000 for high explosive on the tier 9. So yeah, penetration. Yeah, the 4000 DPM with 50mm pen is not bad for a premium tier 8. This thing could see tier 6s. Some has garbage armor, right? Even so, you could just use regular AP. Tier 6 feels bad. I mean, dealing with an autocannon as a tier 6 feels bad. Or autoloader as a tier 6. Now you have an even faster rate of fire with an autocannon. I don't know how you feel playing low tier matchmaking. It just doesn't. So you really need to cover your corners. You really need to cover all your bases. If you have a break in your front line, if these vehicles find any way to your flank or rear, you are fudged beyond all belief. If they have any break in your main line of attack, if they could flank you, by all means, you are dead. I mean, sometimes they don't even have the health to counter themselves, in a sense. So the only counter to themselves is themselves. But yeah, you cannot let this vehicle have any opportunity. Otherwise, you are butt fucked. 6000 DPM with high explosive. And 50mm pen seems bad, but that's for a normal tank shell when you have a large ass reload. This thing spews out at a rate of fire of 250 rounds per minute. You could afford to not pen, and it's high explosive. It will deal some sort of splash damage or damage your tracks and leave you stuck in the mud. Yeah, it's crazy. So overall, I feel this line is fun. It is very comparable to the same playstyle that you feel from the Skoda T25. So if you have fun with the Skoda T25, you'll have fun with these vehicles. It feels like the original Bulldog with a 10-round autoloader clip of the 76. That was a great time. Immediately nerf after a patch or something. God damn it. Also, like with the 5916, that got nerfed from the autocannon. There's no more autocannon on this round or on this vehicle, so disappointing. But the closest vehicle to the tier 7 is the American T71. American T71 Detroit Arsenal, which is also collector's vehicle. My voice cracked. So in order to get it, collector's vehicle. Yeah, hidden gem of a. What the hell? Where's my T71? It's not in. It doesn't have a check mark? Well, technically, it's not in the tech tree. I think it's in the. Yeah, the collector vehicle tab, but it doesn't show it. It should show all the collector vehicle that you already own. Like, for example, the AMX 30B. Oh, it's on the bottom. I'm an idiot. Is it on the bottom? Oh, it's on the bottom. I just didn't scroll enough. So this vehicle is the most similar vehicle to your Skoda T17. So autoloader round, 6 rounds in the clip, 2 seconds between each shot, and 150 alpha damage. So this feels, it's a very fun vehicle. Underrated as all hell. But I love mine, obviously 3 marked. But this is a very fun vehicle. This vehicle feels about the same class as a T71 Detroit Arsenal. So I think you will have fun. These are not scouts. Only downside is to the matchmaking and map choices offered in the matchmaking. So if you get put onto Pokrovka when you're playing a VZ71 against a Manticore, your team is going to be at disadvantage, right? So Pokrovka, Mananovka, Karelia, any of the scouting maps with open fields, you are at a disadvantage when you're matchmaking up with a EBR or no, you will not get matched with EBR. EBR is a car. You'll match up with like AMX 13105 or Manticores. You are at a disadvantage. So, but the upside is this vehicle is assassin vehicle. You cannot leave this vehicle alone. If this vehicle gets to your rear, 6000 DPM of high explosive to your opponent is crazy. Also distracting as all hell, right? Some people there's a passive ability with these vehicles. it's not in the game files. It's not any part of the game stats. It has to do with the player base and their computer configuration. So, not a lot of people think about this, but I play this game with the max rating, right? I have a very good computer. But for those who have crappy computers not running optimally, the autocannons with the rapid shells dumping into your armor, even if bouncing, will screw up your computer settings and making it slow and laggy. Therefore, it's a power outside of the game. It is your hard spec, not actually about the game, right? So if you have a crappy computer, if you get hit by autocannons, and if your game lags up, that's on you, right? So it's a passive power ability outside of the game for these vehicles. But it doesn't matter if you already have a good computer, right? You don't even care. Your frame rate doesn't drop. Your FPS doesn't drop. So, but if you have a crappy computer, then getting hit by autocannons, you're butt fucked. Well, there you go, folks. I feel this line is one of the most interesting lines that we had for a while. I mean, Japanese tank destroyers are whatever. It plays like versatile object 268s, practically. Sometimes the armor work, most of the time gold shell in your face. Whatever. British wheel vehicle could be fun. Needs a heavy buff. Definitely needs a heavy buff for these vehicles. It just doesn't even compare to a Leopard 1. So it doesn't really feel that fun. We had the Polish tank destroyers. It's practically a larger Su-122-54 or something, right? With armor, but the gun mechanics is weird. I mean, okay, you deal more damage at close range, but yeah, okay. I mean, it's not crazy, but these vehicles feel dramatically different than a Type 71, right? Than a rocket heavy tank. Ooh, the only upside of rocket heavy tanks is the premium tank with the high explosive round, which frequently breaks the game. But any of these tech tree doesn't really excite me on the level of autocannons. Autocannons are dangerous. There are glass cannons by all means, but you cannot leave these vehicles alive. You just cannot afford to. 6,000 DPM with high explosive and 50mm pin is no joke. So with that being said, I'm pretty excited, and this is going to be a big patch. But as always, thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Audio high review.